episode of Talking with Friends. I'm Josh Shernoff. I'm talking with friends, TWF style. We're going to start. We've got my brother, Fred Shernoff, is here. Fred, how are you?
Doing good.
Excellent. We've got Calvin Tan. Calvin, how are you?
I am excellent.
And Matthew Mangol, how are you?
I am doing swell.
Well, I didn't want anything personal, but I'm glad you brought up swollen because kind of the episode we're going to talk about today is I think we're going to pick up where we left off last time. So we're picking up around April of 2000, maybe even March of 2002. For those of you who listened in the past, you know, once upon a time, the TWF was the Teenage Wrestling Foundation. Then in February 2002, it came back as the Wrestling Federation, TWF. It was legit. We were licensed with State Athletic Commission. We did a show called Back from Beyond. What's that? We drew what?
Drew almost no fans.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
But that's something that's not specific to February of 2002. So here we are. We do this show. We had our situations with getting off his ring there and whatnot. So now we're planning this next show. We've got a show coming up. It's booked, Terry, and it's booked at a little place called Skate 309.
Skate 309.
Yeah, and as Matt Mangol runs away, and no, it's cool.
It's a tough topic.
Say goodnight to your kids. You know, could have done it. And he's working a match over there. What in the sweet
Fighting
hell?
his demons.
Oh, welcome back, Matt Mangol.
So we booked Skate
Never
309.
fail. Yes, Skate 309.
Skate 309. Now, how do we find Skate
309?
Yeah. Oh,
I was going to say, I think the biggest thing coming out of the first show leading into where we're going is that we made a decision. I think we touched on it a little bit. We made a decision for the first time to give a belt to someone that we didn't really know.
Yeah. We didn't go all the way in talking about that last time. So let's touch base on that.
So we decided that we wanted to, as part of branching out and becoming a legitimate independent wrestling federation, we were going to retain our primary title in-house, that it was going to be only from what we called our homegrowns for the time being, at least. And we said, but the Pennsylvania title, which I used to hold, was going to be opened up to that was going to be available to the indie workers, that we were going to test the waters a little bit with our secondary title. So we ended up
who we can trust. That was really the thing. You know, we want to,
exactly.
We had never worked with anyone that wasn't a
friend. And we were right. We
were
right to question it. So we came out of the first show after running a tournament, and was it
the one Andy only? The one Andy only.
We did mention him. So the one Andy only, to recap, was a student at the Wild Samoan Training Center and had worked on some of Alpha's shows, and we didn't know the distinction that he was not a graduate yet.
Right.
But he presented himself that he was available for bookings, and he was the only name, the one and the only name that he was the only wrestler that we were familiar with. So we thought, okay, he's the guy that we should go with to put the Pennsylvania title on.
So we gave him the title, and then so long story short,
long story medium.
Alpha was not. I don't know if people were in Alpha's ear. I'd gotten this weird email from him at one point of who's more important to WXW, and it was Supremely Great or someone else. I don't remember who it was. Fred, do you remember?
It wasn't a wrestler, I don't think.
No, it was like a commentator or something. And it was this random out of nowhere email, and Alpha's just like, who, you know, I have a question for you. Who is more important to? So I gave the most political answer, where basically I answered the question by saying the strong points of both, and never actually even gave an answer of who was, because I'm like, at that point, I was already smart enough to know, like,
I was going to say it was a great answer, and not at all characteristic of the way you approached anything back in those days.
No. Normally I would just been like, oh, well, that dude's a mark. He's not, you know. But so anyway, I think, in my opinion, I think people were Mark. Yeah, we're gonna get to that for sure. I think if I had to guess, somebody was in Alpha's ear and they weren't happy about the fact that we were running shows,
right,
and that we were using Alpha's ring, and maybe we still had that teenage thing about it that people couldn't like break away from. Right. And I mean, in fairness, I was 18. I was still a teenager. Some of us were still teenagers. And I don't know what
we were presented like the Teenage Wrestling Foundation was a whole different story. That was not a legal professional wrestling league, and those were kids. But when we came back and we saw ourselves as, well, now we're grown up and we're doing it for real. But in the wrestling business, we were all still kids. And,
yes.
And from a perspective of Alpha and the people hanging around him, it was a bunch of young marks pretty much.
And I mean, and I had tried to, quote unquote, make it on my own. But I made a huge mistake with that as well. Prior to bringing back the TWF, I made a deal with a gentleman by the name of Rob Dimension for Steve Carino's PWF. And the deal was, I sell X number of tickets, I get to wrestle on the show. That is not the first time or the last time that'll ever happen. It's a very common independent wrestling practice. Sure. Sold a bunch of tickets, said I wanted to work in a tag match. It was going to be me and Lukewarm John Brody of TWF fame versus, I can't remember for the life of me the team's name, but couple of big guys, and we get there that day and it gets changed to, it's going to be me versus Brody. And we were like, okay, well, you know what? Like, that's fine. We wrestled back in 99, this is 2001, but we wrestled back in 99. And we can do this. We can put on a match. This won't be a problem. I had been training at Alpha's. John had not. And that was a big mistake. My thought was, John knows how to bump. He can take some direction, and he can come in for a couple of high spots in this tag match, and I will basically take most of the heat and all that, and I'll be in there working the majority of the match.
From our perspective, we had no idea why you wanted to, like I think originally when you started training, and that's a whole story in itself, but you were supposed to start with John.
Yes.
And he backed out of training. And so I think from our perspective and among the friends and also in the family, it was a question of why we saw you had gone on to the next level and had been training, and we didn't know why you didn't want to work a trained wrestler or why you would bring John who had chosen not to train.
It's very simple. Comfort zone. Showing up to a show by yourself to go do this thing, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That was it. I mean, I was... That is not a good reason, but that was the reason. The reason was, if I have John here with me, well, I've got my buddy here. And then you also have to remember, we'd kind of been burnt by Dino Santa. So the idea of having some form of, not that anyone who knew John Brody at the time backup, but the idea of having somebody that I know is watching my back and somebody, I'm there with. Yeah. So, short story long, basically what happened was that match was the drizzling shits. It was horrible. Yep. It was terrible. Right before we walked out, they cut us from like 8 minutes to like 3 or so. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was just a long terrible.
3 minutes.
I called drop toe hold spot for me to give Brody a drop toe hold. And as Brody came off the ropes at me and I turned my body to drop toe hold him, he attempted to pretty much baseball slide into drop toe holding me, which obviously I send you off the ropes and I say drop toe hold. If you're trained even for a little bit, and I don't mean that to be insulting to Brody, he wasn't trained. But if you're trained for a little bit, you're not the one. If you're being sent off the ropes, you're not the one doing a drop toe hold. So that I remember was a disaster. We ended the match. We got attacked afterwards, as we were supposed to, by another team. They were hitting us with power bombs, doing things like that. I will say, again, I can't remember their names, but they took perfect care of us. Huge difference from the crap with Dino Santa and all that. These guys came in. We knew they were running in at the end of the match, but it went really well. That aspect, everything else was horrible. So jumping ahead, they loved that we packed the house, so to speak, and Rob Dimension offered a contract basically for us to become like a subsidiary of PWF. And we had a meeting about it because I was like, well, if we're going to start our own branch of this, I pretty much, I think it was us and the four of us. We had this conversation and I remember holding up the, and we all just had a bad feeling about it. And I said, well, then screw it. And I ripped up the contract. And we said, let's bring back the TWF. And that jumps us now back to...
Which I was going to say it kind of connects everything you're talking about with what happened with Dino Santa, which is a whole thing. But
we'll do a Dino episode one day.
We will, yeah. But everything tying into the decision we made with the Pennsylvania title, everything that we were... versus the world title and keeping that in-house and everything. A lot of it was that our experience was teaching us to not really trust anyone in the business, that if we didn't take care of our own, we couldn't, if we didn't have control of the book, pretty much we were in big trouble. And we saw that time and time again. And I do remember that Alpha, that his advice to you when you said you wanted to run a TWF show when you were, because I don't like
it was that story, it was Back from Beyond.
Related to the Steve Carino show, but when you were going to run your own show, Alpha told you that was his best advice was you have to make sure that you're clearly in charge or they will walk all over you, and that
wrestlers will walk all over you. And he gave incredible advice. Yep. Unfortunately, like I said, I think people were in his ear, and I would love to think in my mind, and I'm curious what you guys think. I would love to think in my mind that he felt threatened. WXW felt threatened by the TWF coming in. More than anything, somebody may have been like, dude, you can't have these kids with your ring, with your reputation, your guys there setting up the show, and they're doing talent. This. Now, John, granted, we were having, aside from the, triple threat,
the ring is the ring was actually, well, as we're going to get to, I'm sure it may have been a bit of a blessing in disguise because that ring was an elevated sidewalk. Okay.
Yeah.
But harder. Softer bumps.
Yes. It was, am I right that it was an old WWF ring from before they redid?
I think it was. So it had a spring in the middle, which is laughable because anyone thinking about that
Blue Chew, Josh.
Dude, that spring, it was HARD. That spring was so thick and vascular. It was that spring though was just, it was so solid that there was a little bit
spring.
Yeah, there was a little bit of give when a 300+ pound Samoan bumped on it. But when I bumped on it, with my back then inflating my weight to a weight that I wish I could now legitimately drop down to. It was not, it didn't move. It didn't budge. It was terrible. But long story, even longer, Afa apparently had a meeting with everybody for WXW and said, you can't work these shows. So we had Tommy Suede booked.
Right, yeah.
And
so that was, so we had moved beyond just Andy only, and we were now actively, I won't say poaching because we weren't signing exclusive deals.
But our
trying
thought,
to utilize WXW talent.
Our thought was WXW. These are the only people we really know and that we feel like we can trust.
Them. Yeah.
So the story, as we were told, was that Afa said their backyard, you can't work for them. I don't know that Afa ever said that. I don't think to this day that Afa really said that. I think other people.
I think he was just more concerned with the liability.
I think other people were kind of giving the old hey brother, I heard from Pops, you worked that show, brother. You're not getting booked. That's what I think was happening. I don't think this was a. I think. Well,
it's
not like Afa. You know,
it wasn't. No, it was not. And I'll say, I don't know if anyone's seen the Young Rock show.
Great show,
which is pretty good. And Off is having a resurgence there, the Offensica, and it gives me a lot of points with my wife because I get to explain Chesley that I kind of knew that guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like he was and is a good man, and I just don't believe
we never really understood what happened. But I think that while it was a far cry from Beyond the Grave, where there were the Teenage Wrestling Foundation, where we are very, very fortunate that there were no serious injuries there out of that. There was nothing that came close to that, including the triple threat, which at Back from Beyond, which wasn't great, but it wasn't backyard crap to the same degree. And
it was inexperienced. It was green. It was trained green wrestlers for the most part, with no experience.
Green.
A wrestler named Green.
That's what I was getting at. Was I think if you are the guys that came, and I won't say who, but who came representing Alpha and brought the ring, and they're watching this show, and they don't know much of any of the talent, and they see things like Sassy Mike Malassi versus Big Lou, who neither of them had ever been in a ring before, and they don't know what they're doing, and they see this stuff. That's where that starts to get back and going like, Josh is running a shit show that you got to be careful untrained.
Yeah,
with.
And I mean, we had Kevin Matthews, we had Scott Fowler, but then again, we had Bill Bain was his first professional match. Now look, your first match has to be somewhere. You know, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah,
he was trained. He was trained by Scott. How much more trained was Bill by Scott than the fact that Mangol was trained pretty much by me at that point, you know, and would be trained by other people as time would go on, and we'll get to that. Maybe it was his best trainer, his Mest trainer, but we'll.
I think to put a bow on it, I think it was a situation that it's perception, and I can easily see now, as unfortunately old as we are, and we look back, if you imagine looking at 18, 19, 20-year-old kids doing this stuff, whatever, like it was perception that I think, I don't think there's any real fault.
No, but the long and the short of it is what happened was Tommy Suede no-showed, didn't cancel, no-showed.
Well, it's even better, right? You know,
Andy only canceled.
Piece of shit.
And I said, well, dude, bring me I need the belt, mail me the belt. And he did not. I said, or at least just show up and give me the belt. You have because we were trying to be respectful. We gave people the belts to take home. A mistake we didn't learn from on this. Thank you, Danny DeManto. We'll talk about that another time. But no, so Andy only eventually mailed back the Pennsylvania title. It was totally just like
make the remark, Josh. You may want to make the remark. It's right there.
No. Remember, it's still an audio show too.
Well,
tune in youtube.com/Mind of the Meanie if you want to know what the hell just happened on Calvin's screen. It was. I thought for a second there I saw the old WCW logo.
It's a reference to 83 weeks, Spring Stampede.
My good friend Eric Bischoff. No, so I'm so derailed here at this point that I don't know what. Yeah, they're gone. But before the no-show happened, Alpha said, I can't do that date.
That's right.
And he said, well, why don't you just change it? And that's even, not that we had so many people or something, but that's a pain in the ass for the most established.
Wouldn't he know that?
And I think it was a work anyway. I think
hoping to just cut ties and do it in a friendly way.
So I made a call. I thought, let's go back in time then. Who else can you get a ring from? Well, we had Alpha at Beyond the Grave and Back from Beyond, but who did we have before that? We had old Jim Kettner, ECWA. Jim Kettner.
His rope couldn't possibly break twice. So
yeah, it had to have been fixed by that point in time. Fun fact, last I saw our friend Dave Sagan, who's a wrestler out in Texas these days, I saw a couple of years ago, Dave worked a match for someone. I think they were borrowing the ECWA ring or something. Maybe he was wrestling for ECWA, whatever it was. It was the same ring as it was from Armageddon.
Wow.
How do
Same.
you even know?
The
Somebody
posts
carved their initials in it?
No, the posts and everything, the way that it looked. I went back and reviewed other tape, but I knew that. It was so, well, I mean, it was an important ring to us. I spent a lot of time looking at the pieces of it, as it was being fixed. But we talked to Jim Kettner, super cool guy. Unfortunately, they already had a show going on. But he said to me, let me give you the number to a great guy. His name's Mark Mest.
He's the Mest.
And Mest has a number of rings. You're going to be good. You're good to go. He'll take care of you. Called Mark Mest. Hey, man. Hey, how's it going? I was like, hey, yeah. Jim Kettner said, oh, yeah, I love Jim. Yeah, what can we do for you guys? We'll take whatever. Could not have been a nicer guy. So we're like, okay, well, let's, I was like, hey, do you mind if maybe this was in March. I'm like, we go up to, cause he's talking about how he's got the dungeon and all this place where he trains people.
You asked if we could work through our matches.
I said, yeah, can we work through our matches up there? Like, that would be amazing if we could go up. Yeah, come on down. Like, okay, well, where are you located? And so basically he told us to meet him. He's like, it's tough. It's in like a, what was it? Like a storage facility. Yeah. An outdoor storage facility.
Across from the mushroom plant.
Across from mushroom plant. Or so they say.
Outside of Boyertown.
Yeah, where was it? Blandon?
Blandon.
Out in Blandon.
None of us have ever heard of.
Out west.
Out Mest. And so we pull up. He said, meet him at the Turkey Hill. Mm-hmm. And he would then drive.
Turkey Hill's a gas station.
A gas station. Yeah, for those who don't know, Turkey Hill it's a gas station. Yeah. Thank you, Calvin. That's good. Calvin's the one who always remembers that we have people not.
I guess it's more of a convenience store with a gas station.
Yeah,
it's a Turkey Hill convenience store.
Yes, Turkey Hill also makes a wonderful brand of ice cream. Yeah, it's fantastic. Some drink, if you will. Yes. So we go to Turkey Hill, and we're waiting for him to pull up. He tells us what car he's gonna be in. It's a tiny little blue car, if I remember correctly. Tiny little sedan. Pulls up next to us. Now, I had pictured, for whatever reason, Mark Mest in my mind was this thin, goateed gentleman. I don't know why. It's just the sound of his voice, whatever. Well, he had a goatee. That man is a Google Mark Mest, or better yet, Matt Mangol. Let's take a look at your shirt. Mangol is wearing a... that doesn't do it justice.
It doesn't do it justice.
But a phenomenal shirt with Mark Mest on there. Mark Mest is a man who has worn shirts that say fat people are harder to kidnap. And
he's embraced it.
Yeah, he is.
Can we give a little overview? I don't have proper notes for
better than an underview
of so Mest was at that point. I'm trying to think. I would say he'd probably been in the business for over a decade, probably like maybe between 10 and 15 years. And
I remember he telling us stories about doing stuff at like the Manhattan Center for Raw. So
okay, and his older brother Troy had been in the business a good bit longer, and they were we didn't know anything about them, but we learned that they were sort of staples in the indie circuit around the Philadelphia region, and kind of everybody had heard of them at some point or another. And they had a lot of history and a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah, the Mest brothers, they had a tag team. What were they called?
The Intimidators.
The Intimidators.
Yes, the Intimidators. Yeah.
No, they were, but look,
and they ran a school.
They ran a school and they trained people. And there were a lot of characters there. There was Grifter. There was
Max Havoc.
There was
Rico
Suave.
Cremator. Who also went by another name at some time when he wasn't wearing the mask. Right? He was
right, yeah.
God, the hell was he?
El Crematore?
No. When he wasn't wearing the Cremator mask, he was
John.
No, Mango. I can't believe you don't remember this. He was like a woodsman of some sorts.
Brawny? I mean, I don't remember that. No.
Oh, there was, and wasn't part of his gang Ronnie Raines?
Oh, Risky Business Ronnie Raines. Yes.
Risky Business Ronnie.
Yes, Risky Business Ronnie Raines is the manager.
So they were a band of characters. Many of them were students of the Mest brothers, and they were all. And again, prefaced by what I said before, that we had already had some experiences that were not so savory in how people treated us because we were younger. Whether or not we don't know, we could have walked out of there and they were all just talking shit behind our backs. But to our faces, they could not have been nicer and more welcoming, and it was just a fun group of guys.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to find Cream Eater's other name, but they were a really good group of guys. We would have conversations. They talk about how I remember the time. Well, that was I think 2007 maybe with the disrespect to Pat Patterson.
No, this was a time when you were talking about ripping them up and tearing them down with TNA when they first started.
But anyway, so here's the thing. So we go to Mark Mest. Mark Mest was over 500 pounds. That's really what we're getting to here. The man was morbidly obese. But we trained. He couldn't have been any nicer. Calvin,
he can move in the ring.
He could move in the ring.
He can move in the ring.
He really could.
Yes, he really could.
He can move like a cat when he wanted to.
So now, Calvin, you weren't there with us for the training. You first met him. We'll fast forward. So we ended up using Mark Mest's ring. Mark Mest had a very similar ring set up at the dungeon to what Afa had. And we were like, okay, fine. It is what it is. Mangol and I work out. Mangol was supposed to be wrestling Brody, but Brody couldn't do any of our like pre-tape stuff we wanted to do. And I was just like, because I wasn't going to wrestle, I was going to take a little break because my back had been spasming and having all kinds of issues. And then I was just like, you know what might be a good idea? What if I eat healthier, exercise, drop some weight, and cut my giant hair that I had? And I was like a new man. So we ended up...
Brody wasn't injured or something around that time?
No, that was a work.
That was a work. Okay.
So we said Brody was injured. He was actually injured at Beyond the Grave, but we said that Brody got injured, and that's why I took his place. The challenge Mangol in a 2 out of 3 falls match.
Right. Okay.
So fast forward, here we are, Skate 309. We've already told the story where our friend Biz cursed everyone off for not being able to get tickets.
Skate 309 was the first time that we sort of established ourselves in like kind of outside of doing shows. Like we went in public, we went to do an autograph signing and ticket sales.
Yes.
And a brief promo, which I don't know if anyone has any video of.
No, what? I don't even remember.
I talked. Remember, I had the mic. I had a live mic.
Oh, I usually block that out. Yeah.
Fridays, it was a skate night for the kids.
Skate night for the kids. Yeah, we gave Matt Mangol a live mic. Calvin, were you there for this?
Yeah, I was there for that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the promo, but I was there for that.
I know. Yeah, I figured that you were there for that. Calvin was like picking up chicks or something at the skating rink.
That's Calvin. Wasn't that when Calvin connected with the girl who ended up training to become a wrestler, the red-haired girl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know she ended up training.
Yeah, she ended up training, becoming very had a lot of opinions as the years went on about wrestling, and so Mest shows up with his band of thieves. And
I didn't see anything.
No, I shouldn't say so. Well, no. That was Office group that took the chairs.
Yeah, no.
But
they took him after they broke them.
Band of brothers.
Yeah, band of brothers, brother. And Calvin Tan, we haven't heard as much from you today.
Well, I wasn't involved in the story at all.
I know, but what was your first impression of Mark Mest?
He was a really nice guy. I mean... I don't know. I mean, we've said it multiple times. Like, we've run into all these different characters that were kind of like, oh, it's the wrestling business, and then Mark Mest, who's actually a nice guy. So it was actually refreshing to meet him and talk to him and just watch him work too.
Yeah,
I think I don't want to put words in his mouth, and he may have a totally different story of his if he even remembers us. But I think that. The same way we talked about last time, that we prided ourselves, and we took the product that we came out with very seriously, and I think it had a good impact on a lot of the people who worked for us. And I think for Mest, for the most part, our relationship with him was great because what he cared about was the wrestling business, deeply, passionately, very traditional in his views of the wrestling business, and we showed a lot of respect. For the most part, and I think that's what got us over with him.
Yeah, but he brought a ring that Mangol and if memory serves me correctly, and it often does not, but if memory serves me correctly, I believe Matt Mangol got in the ring first and kind of like yelled to me across the room, like, you need to get in this ring. It was the best bump I've ever, the best bumping ring I've ever been in. Period. I think hands down. Mangol, do you agree?
Oh yeah. Well, you could tell by our match.
That's the
we
thing.
just did
I'm
what we
taking
did, and we overdid everything, and it worked out great.
Yeah, I'm taking that high and tight choke slam. Like, it didn't matter because you have in your mind, you've mentally prepared yourself, all these different spots that you're going to take. You've mentally prepared yourself for this solid ass ring that you've been working in, whether it was Alpha's or Mest training ring. And then you get into this thing. Well, now it feels like you're bumping on a mattress. Now, it wasn't. It was a flex beam ring, yeah. And we'd never been in one like that before. It was awesome. And Matt and I ended up having a really solid match that I recently watched back. Mangol brought me the tape of the match.
I haven't watched that in 20 years. Yeah, I had a box of those tapes. So before they deteriorated, I wanted to get you to put them on DVD.
So I ended up, because I mean, it is 2004, so I'll make sure to burn that onto a DVD for you.
Wait, can we take it back a little? Can we take it back a little to the ring, right? Because I'm sure a lot of people don't know the difference between rings, right? So
I feel like Calvin's here to steer us in hey, so you guys were just reminiscing, but we have people listening and they're in other countries.
Oh yeah, and this is interesting stuff, right? Because the average fan doesn't know about ring construction.
Yes, right? That's a very valid point.
So Alpha's ring with the giant spring in the middle, I guess it's basically what kind of board is it on top?
Well, I mean, it was
wood,
solid wood. And they're all wood.
Yeah.
I guess it varies between whether it's planks, like long planks, or plywood sheets.
I think Alphas were plywood sheets, if I remember correctly.
I don't know. Does that make a difference in the
giant
bump?
Spring in the middle.
There's the giant spring in the middle, and then of course you do have the metal beams, but you have these metal beams that are basically a structure. They're more
right. So the spring, if I'm correct, the spring ring is basically a floating, extremely hard structure that then sinks on the spring.
And the spring is not really there for give as much as it is to keep the structure up.
Yeah.
You know? And have just the littlest bit of give. But it was very similar to like a boxing ring. The flex beam.
So explain the flex beam ring, because I have no idea.
So the one that I'm most
that
familiar with is actually the WWE's ring, circa 2007, 2008. I don't know if they've changed it since then. But that was the ring down in OVW that we used to build and take down and everything like that. So basically what you had there was you had your outside of the ring, or as the commentators would tell you, the hardest part of the ring, which for the record, it really is. I slid into the ring once and slammed my knee into it. It hurt so bad. But
you didn't take out both of them like Vince?
No, but I damn near did. Damn near lost one of them, but I still got up. Now then, the ring, the way it is, it's like metal structuring around, which everybody knows what that looks like. Anytime the apron gets pulled up, for someone to go under, get the tables or whatever, you know what that looks like. Well, crisscrossed, you have these thin, long, they're hollow, but they're solid steel, but they're hot, but they're these flex beams. So they're a little hot. There's a little more give to them. You have those go across, then you have other ones go the other direction across. On top of that, you put wood planks down. I wish I could remember the size of them, but they were much wider than they were thick. And you'd put, but they were you'd maybe have for a 20 by 20, maybe have
a foot wide.
Maybe, yeah, you'd have maybe 20 across as opposed to these big planks. Then on top of that, you'd roll out like a foam padding, which if you're thinking, oh, I knew there was padding, it really is not. I mean, that's the difference of, think about if you put carpet down on concrete. Well, you're not going to hurt yourself quite as much as if you hit the concrete without carpet.
Crack your head open.
Yeah, but it's really not, so, Yeah, so then they pull a canvas super tight on top of it, and that's it. So, but that's pretty much what we were dealing with. If anything, though, it was probably not built nearly as well as a WWE ring. So it had much more of that, every time you stepped on it, it was very loud. There was a lot of spacing between the beams. So when you would hit, they would make a really nice sound for a bump, but it also kind of sucked when you would run the ropes and stuff, and it was a little bouncy, but an incredible bump. But
funny. I was gonna interject real quick about rings. How long we were fascinated by that. I mean, I could tell a million stories about like our attempts, you and me, Josh, of like trying to build our own rings from the time we were little kids and stuff. But I remember even in high school, around the time when we started connecting up with everybody for the TWF, we used to get that. It was like a boxing magazine, like Ringside or something, or some sort of catalog. Yeah. And I remember bringing that in to class with Calvin senior year, and we were looking at that they were offering a wrestling ring for $6,000.
We talked about that ring. I feel like we talked about that ring for years.
If we
then High Spots offered a ring, and we
$6,000.
Yep,
like that would have been.
Thank God we didn't have like real money back then.
Seriously,
or the things.
That's why.
Or I'd still have a storage room somewhere with a ring in it, and just be like, be at Matt's.
But anyway, you were saying.
No, all I was gonna say was, the ring was meant to have some give to it. But there was another structure there at Skate 309 that night. That was not meant to have any give to it. And that was the stage.
Right.
So there had been some improvements made,
not
many.
At that point.
Not many. It was pretty similar.
Production wise, it was very similar. The differences were, well, there's a few things. I mean, this wasn't connected to what I was doing, but we had live music at the show. Our videos had changed.
We did.
Yep. Our videos had changed insofar as we now had footage of some of our guys. So the videos were a little better, and we were trying to introduce pre-tapes, but there were like backstage segments and things like that. So otherwise it was run pretty much exactly the same way. The stage had two significant problems at that point. What had been very impressive at the Radisson in the ballroom did not work in Skate 309 because we didn't have the same extent. I don't remember even what we had, but we did not have the same extent of draping going on. I don't know if it was totally free floating, but it was not.
I think it was totally free floating.
Yeah, it was free floating.
We had black paper that we basically got that covered over all like the it was a skating rink covered over all the glass. So we were able to create a backstage area for ourselves. But basically the talent would have to walk like this narrow pathway so they weren't seen. It was
so the stage, and I know you should. I think you produced a picture of it the last go around, but
yes.
If I remember correctly, the original stage was made out. The surface was made out of 3 4-foot by 8-foot panels going deep. So that would make it 12 feet across, and then there was the piece that extended out for the screen.
Right.
But you're only talking about a 12-foot wide stage, which is not very impressive in a big room. So it didn't look good for the first
time. We had it so far set back because the nature of the lighting setup.
That's what I was saying. So actually it was 3 issues. So the appearance of it was one. The second was the lighting that had been a problem before, but it was worse. The projector just was not strong enough. We needed pitch black to be able to rear project the image onto the screen and have it be remotely visible. And we were now dependent on that telling part of the story we were telling had to do with these backstage segments. So we needed people to be able to watch it.
An incredible and concise history of the TWF video that was my first go at producing videos.
15-minute long.
We mentioned last time that Fred was at this time doing all the video production. Now, today, I produce videos for Fight TV. I do the Mind of the Meanie, and I do this here. I do So Says Shernoff. Today, I am very well versed in video production. Back then, I had never done anything before. But I decided, you know what? I want this video, and it's a little much to ask Fred to throw together this whole Sahadi type video.
That was part of the prep. I think in between those shows was when we took the trip to get your computer. Remember going up to New Jersey? We took that trip to that like specialty store and bought a capture card that was like $2,000, and then a
like
cheap
that.
computer from Best Buy, and pieced the whole thing together. And that was in the TWF office and everything. You got a whole setup that could process video.
Yeah, I guess so.
And you started doing it.
Yeah, and I put together what ended up being a 15-minute video montage of the history of the TWF championship, which, for the record, was held by me, lost to Big Papa, presented back to me, lost via pinfall to Brody, to Mangol. And that was it.
Yep.
So that title had 3 champions, 4 separate reigns. Big Papa's reign legitimately lasted 1 night because that was the only time then the company was shut down.
Yeah.
My second reign lasted 1 night. My first reign lasted from 1 show to the next show. And Mangol's reign at this point had only been the evening that he won the championship. So we didn't have voiceovers. We didn't have commentating. So, and as everyone who's listening to this and listens to Mind of the Meanie, you know that I'm somewhat of a long-winded person. I love detail and stories, and that's what you had. And to me, it wasn't enough to show Big Papa comes to the ring, Big Papa hits me with the power bomb, Big Papa holds up the title. No. I needed to show every high spot that took place in that match. I needed every clothesline, not just the clothesline. I needed to have the spot that led up to the clothesline so that you, the viewer, could understand why that clothesline was so impactful.
So that's the point. So we went from, we're showing there's
images,
entrance videos,
which is what we had back in Armageddon. As far back as Armageddon, we had a projector. Well, yeah, but
we were using the screen, and it was really having a good. It was popping the boys, as they say, and the crowd was responding to it because it was something different. But they didn't really have to focus on it. It was like a garnish for what's, they're focused on the wrestler coming out, and it's just that's there. Now we're expecting people to watch an extensive amount of footage on the screen, and it couldn't really be seen. So that was a big problem. And then to tie this back into what we're with Mark Mest, we could no longer properly accommodate the vastness of some of our talent. Yes. That it's untested. And I will say, in my own defense, having built this thing, that when we first tested it before Back from Beyond, Mike Green and Big Lou ran around together on the stage. So a total combined weight of well over 500 pounds running around, and it was fine.
Mike at that point was in it would have been about 500.
About 500 pounds. Okay.
Yeah, so, a little over maybe.
So it wasn't a poorly constructed thing, and it's possible that Mark Mest could have gone up. The problem was that we had I think we talked about this last time. There were no steps in the back. You had to climb up like a step ladder, and it was an awkward thing. Yeah. And so
that shit wasn't happening.
No. So a lot of our talent ended up walking around the side of the stage, killing the whole thing. So
the other thing was Mest wanted to, so we gave Mest a match. That was the beginning. So Mest and his boys that set up the ring were always given a spot on the show. They always wanted to work, which is one other thing too. They never asked for more money to work. They asked to work. And that, you talked earlier about the love that they had for wrestling. Mm-hmm. These were guys who were getting paid the same amount to come set up the ring, sit and eat some free food that we were going to provide them, and then break down the ring and drive home. But they wanted to work. They wanted to get in there and they wanted to put on a show.
That's the one where the toolbox was involved?
I want to say that was West Virginia.
There were a lot more gimmicks.
I don't think I was in the West Virginia show.
West Virginia had a casket too.
Yeah, West Virginia had the casket.
I remember Mark Mest getting either using or getting hit by a toolbox.
So Calvin, here's the thing though, man.
Gosh, I didn't know you wrestled him.
Oh, listen to him. Actually, I did, but I ran out of the ring, got counted out, and then Big Lou's music hit. That was years later. But the fun fact here, Calvin Tam was one of our cameramen, and
I don't know about cameraman. I was working the video and sound.
You were working video and the sound at that point.
He was a video sound engineer.
Calvin Tan, if you ever watch the video of the main event, We got 2 cameras going on. We've got Biz. We've got Andrew Sagan, brother of Dave Sagan. And then midway through the match, a 3rd stationary camera gets turned on that Calvin Tan is now running because the main event had happened. Well, think about it. Main event had happened. All the videos were done. So we had this like extra, pretty decent quality camera. It's actually the camera that caught Mangol's leg drop, which was turned into a shirt by Mangol that he wore, which we then took and turned into a shirt that you can now purchase over at ProWrestlingTees.com/Mind of the Meanie. But Calvin was doing that. But I think as time went on, Calvin, you had done some other camera stuff for us, or you were at least maybe just because you were watching, doing the video stuff, you were seeing more than we were seeing. You know, like, and Fred too, you were seeing more than like Matt and I were seeing. Matt and I were always going over a match. More in the back.
Show. Yeah.
More of the show. Absolutely. So, you know, there are some shows that Mangol and I, maybe we watched it maybe that night or the night after or something. We like got together and watched it. Me more so than Mangol, because I'd go home and watch the tape, but Mangol didn't have it. So there are matches that took place on the show that myself and Mangol have never really seen, that you guys did see. So I don't remember. Much. I don't remember. What's that?
You didn't miss much.
No. Well, you definitely missed if you were trying to watch the Mangol Rod Greco match, but that's a story for another time.
That's
maybe even later today, because I do want to try and cover that. So
that was Inferno. It was about 1,000 degrees in that gymnasium.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to pick up the pace, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, let's pick up the pace a little bit here. Nobody's listening anymore. 49 minutes of talking
so we
about Mark Mest.
So we ran a show. And
long story short, Mark Mest walked around the stage, but afterwards, Fred, you decided
the stage didn't collapse.
There's a few key things that came out of that. One was that we decided we needed to improve our production. 2 was that after prior to the show, we struck up kind of a friendship with the Doc and Bill Bain.
The Doc, later known as Scott Fowler. And so they came up to help us with selling the tickets and everything. They came up from Maryland, and so we now thought we had latched on to the best possible thing, which in a lot of ways we had, which was now we have a guy who's not a homegrown. He's not one of our group of friends. He's a trained professional wrestler, but he's one of us. He's a friend of ours, and we can trust him. Yeah,
and that was kind of the beginning of his push, really.
And so that night, I want to say, crowned him the new Pennsylvania champion using Mangol's old tag belt, because we didn't have the other belt.
Yeah, that's right.
And so he was crowned the new Pennsylvania champion. He was somebody that we trusted, and that is a very valid.
He was
point.
dedicated. I mean, not only did they came up all the way from. I mean, it had to have been over an hour drive at least to come up to sell tickets and sign autographs and everything like that. They came up to, I don't know if it was for that show, but I mean, in that time period, they came up to a few times to the TWF office to film pre-tapes, to do interviews, that like whatever we needed. They were really committed to what we were doing. They
really were. And their commitment showed, like their commitment, you could tell in the quality of what we were able to turn out.
Which of course also leads to West Virginia, that a little bit.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't expect that, any indie worker was, we were a little indie promotion. It was nice that they latched onto us.
Yeah.
We even had Bill Bain ended up being a part of that 2 out of 3 falls match with me and Mangol, running in wearing the Superstar shirt because he was, that was when we were starting.
And side note, the Bill Bain's video he ended up with down the line.
Yes.
Still classic.
Oh, the Baniac video. So yeah, we turned, and that was something that we were starting to get to. We were starting to try and do too, was really like create characters, especially. So Bill Bain came out to, was it Down with the Sickness? And which we kept, but we were able to tweak because what happened was he was, and this happens a lot to all of us, myself included. You see yourself for something that you're not, and Bill Bain saw himself as big, muscled up, tough guy wrestler. He was Triple H in the Attitude Era, but he wasn't.
I think Bruce Pritchard talks about a lot on his show with Conrad that and I don't remember specifically about whom, but it comes up a lot that he'll say like a certain guy, he'll say he was he was a guy you could work into any card anywhere in the world, but he was not a main eventer. He was not the world champion. And that's, but everybody thinks that they're the world champion.
Right. And we saw Bill Bain, and he was very, like, he'd come out and he'd yell and he'd do whatever. And we saw him as, there was this kid, I won't say his name, but that we'd gone to school with, and then we kind of knew, and he was like a little out there in some ways. And we had this like vision of like kind of making Bill Bain that character,
and that was
socially awkward kind of,
right. And that was step 2 of what we started with when we launched Back from Beyond, and we did the entrance videos, and we told people, we said, this is what we're going to provide for you. We're not going to sign you. We don't have the money. We're not signing you to an exclusive contract. But if you commit to us, and if you trust us, and trust us to create storylines, create characters, all that, we can create something together that's better than a lot of the crap that's out there in the indies that's just matches.
Yeah.
And we had these visions, and we put in the time, and for the people who we could trust. And around that time, Doc and Bill Bain started to be guys that we could trust. So we put more of our effort into them and trying to see what could we do for them, and what can we, if they're going to show up and do pre-tapes and all this other stuff, what we're going to work them into storylines. And Bill became part of, I think it was for that show. He, because he had like the backstage thing where he's all hyped up, and then he comes running out.
He sees who like my insurance policy is, and
Yep.
He comes and he's like, oh, I want to do it, and then he's hitting himself. He's like, stupid, what I say, like that kind of thing. Like almost like Chris Farley when he would like interview people back,
Yep. So we convinced them that it was worth tweaking their view of themselves a little bit, and there's obviously a lot more of that.
And we ended up doing it with him. We made like the Baniacs thing, and like Mangol alluded to the entrance video where we had like little cartoons. There was like Bambi getting stepped on
by a
dinosaur, but like I mean, these were like cartoons that were like just like drawn out with no color or anything like that. Just crazy stuff. Baniac, obviously, in the Hulkamaniac type thing, and it worked. And we started.
We're good at that. I think that we were always we have already, and we will continue to crap on ourselves where necessary. Like we're pretty fair about like what we screwed up and what we were not so good at.
Sure.
But we were good at seeing talent and seeing how they should be utilized, I think.
And I think we were creative.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, when you look at it, in a perfect world, the 4 of us would have been a creative team for someone else's promotion.
For someone else. Yeah.
And that, I think, is like, had you put our creativity of our vision of what we wanted with someone else's know-how and money and all that, I think what you would have found was a really, really entertaining product. This was around the time where Ring of Honor and CZW and all these promotions that were coming out of the Philly area, more or less, after ECW, they were all happening. And the one thing they really lacked was creative. Now, they didn't need it because Ring of Honor was very much about in the ring, bell to bell. CZW was very much about, the violence and stuff. So
right. Ring of Honor could hire a card full of people,
the greatest wrestlers in the world,
who are being paid minimum $200, $300 a show, and probably in some cases a lot more.
Right.
And then they'll have, on top of that, they'll have their featured special appearances, and they'll pay a fortune too. We didn't have that budget, so we thought we could create something out. I don't want to say something out of nothing, but that we could work with what we had and elevate it to the next level.
Yeah, like we didn't think, and this is no disrespect to Scott, but we didn't think Scott Fowler, the Doc, we didn't look at him and go, this is our AJ Styles. Screw that guy. We've got we got that these were not the top echelon, but our thought was they're good in the ring. We can give them a personality. And not to jump ahead too much, but Scott Fowler eventually dropped the Doc gimmick and trusted us in turning him into Scott Fowler, the solution Scott Fowler.
The story with that, and I don't know.
And when he wrestled Meanie on Velocity years later as a tribute, he wore the gear that we paid for and had made for him for his first solution Scott Fowler gear. Because we moved on.
I want to say this is around that time.
You're talking about Bill Apter and Wawa? Yeah.
It was a while before we repackaged Scott, but he was working as the Doc.
I think it was before the first show, honestly. I think it was when we had him booked for the first show.
No, we'd already worked with him and everything, and this is around this time when we were becoming big fans of him, and he was a friend of ours and everything. I ran into Bill Apter at Wawa, and he hadn't been able to attend the recent show, whatever it was. He'd been busy.
He had 1,000,001 things to do.
Yeah.
Of course.
And he said, "I hear you guys are doing great things. Everything's going really well. It's so great." And he said, "Who you got working for you?" And I said, "It's probably not a lot of people you've heard of." I said, "But we got a few real up and comers." I said, "There's this really talented guy, the Doc, who's now our Pennsylvania champion." And he goes, "Which Doc? I know a ton of docs." And I thought in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's a problem. That's something we're gonna.
And I remember us sitting in Starbucks, the late Starbucks in Maple Glen. I remember exactly where I was sitting, where we were going back and forth, and we're saying, and Scott wanted to go by. He wasn't even there, but we were having this conversation. Scott really wanted to be Scott Fowler.
That's right.
His real name is Scott Fowler.
Yep.
And I just kept feeling like Scott Fowler, for whatever reason, I didn't like it. I didn't. There's something about. I'm like, you're Scott Fowler. It's who you are. And it's a name that didn't sound like Mick Foley. It didn't sound like it was something. And we were so much like, we don't want you to be anything but yourself. That we went with that. And that of course jumps ahead. But we're not here to talk about the storylines and stuff. We're here to talk about the experiences we had. And
so we came out of that, and guys, feel free to jump in, Calvin, if you feel the ship needs some steering. But so we came out of that show, and we loved working with Mest, and we're going to keep using him for the ring and everything. So I guess we did another show.
So we did a show. We did a show in June called Redemption.
Was that post West Virginia?
West Virginia was July.
Okay. So in the process, just like quick, I'll speak as quickly as I can about the behind the scenes. What we did was we created a new stage. That was the main thing. We tweaked we're always tweaking the video production. I think after the second show, we got away from the TV with the projector. I think we started using some sort. I don't remember exactly how we did it. No, we kept using the TV, but for that stuff. But the menus were a little more accessible, and we didn't have to cover things up as much. We figured something out, or had something we could jump to. And with the stage,
I almost feel like we jumped to either a TWF logo or like a black screen.
Most of the black screen.
Yeah.
And I took it as a personal challenge because I just hated. We put so much time and money and effort into the stage, and it just looked ridiculous. So I designed this new concept, and I think we originally talked about that. I'd read a book about how to build a deck, and then decided not to go in that direction. Mm-hmm. So I decided I'm gonna build basically this outdoor structure with this big these big outdoor treated pieces of lumber and whatever, probably fumigated poisoned the audience, but the second version 2.0 of the stage was much bigger. It wasn't quite as tall, I don't think. And it was built with these long pieces of like foot high boards, doubled up foot high boards, really overkill strong, and connected together with all these panels in between. We hung can't remember what you call them, like the deck where the deck joists go in, the little metal brackets that go along the side, and we dropped the pieces in. Everything was way overkill, like the thickest wood we could find.
No, because you wanted Mark Mest to walk. This was a point of pride for you. You wanted Mark Mest to walk out onto the stage.
Because I felt that I wanted to do that for him, because I wanted to treat all of our wrestlers with respect.
In some ways, I mean, that was somewhat embarrassing, for him to not be able to step on it.
I felt, and this is getting to what happened in the next show. I felt when that man walks out on that stage, the audience is going to go, God damn, this is something. This is not a bunch of kids coming out and like this is a real wrestler, larger than life, And so I had this vision for it. And I also wanted the screen to be bigger, which is stupid because we were having an issue with, projecting a strong enough image.
Yeah, we can't get a strong image. What should we do? We'll make it bigger.
Yeah. So the second stage was built on this deck, and then it was this giant screen that went kind of behind a big portion of the stage and was nailed into or screwed into the stage.
And then just a little entrance. little entrance.
I remember while I'm doing this was the show. This would have been the show with Big Papa, right?
Big Papa made his return at the end of the show. Yes.
Right.
To attack.
Okay.
I did not wrestle on this show.
So
I was there with Lou, who wrestled Mangol.
So Noah, Big Papa was there.
Although I did get color. There was something I got. That was in Brody and Sassy's match, where Brody also got color because he got hit in the head. Can we talk about that for 1 second?
That
we'll
might be
get
a
to
whole
that.
other show, Josh.
We'll get to that.
With the stage. All right. So I remember Noah coming over. I was always fortunate to have. I think everybody wanted to be part of the stage because it was so cool. Like, so I always had a team of people who were volunteering to help out, and I would design this stuff and kind of mark it up, and then we had to do it on the day of. And
we should also say we were at Colonial Elementary School for this. Now we moved to where we're in a gym. We were in a gymnasium, and we had seen
where we had seen previous indie shows, but where we had the kind of place we had said we would never run in.
Right.
We're not
in Plymouth, White Marsh, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Show 3. We're in a gym.
Yeah, we're back in the gym where we had once years earlier seen Greg the Hammer Valentine and Tom Brandy and those guys on a show, and Devin Storm, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so.
Crowbar.
So I remember Noah coming over and looking at the stage, which like my design was like you had to build the whole thing for it to be strong. It's all wobbling and everything like that. And I'm pretty Noah going, I'm not walking on that. And Noah's a pretty big guy. And I said, trust me, it's gonna be all right. But because what I did include this time was stairs in the back. And I lowered the height so that the stairs in the front were easier to walk down. So we had 2 sets of stairs, and once you put those in and they balanced it out and everything, the thing was rock solid. So we had the stage set up, and the only story that I'll tell about it. So I had this vision of Mark Mest is going to walk out, and I'm designing around that this potentially 500-pound man needs to walk out on this stage, and I feel confident that I've got this set. The first thing that happens, I'm back obviously running the videos, and we got Mark Mest music hits, and the first thing I noticed when he steps onto the steps in the back, there was an unfortunate amount of give in the steps and I thought maybe I should have doubled those up, but they held. And he walks up onto the stage. He's followed by his manager, Risky Business Ronnie Reigns, who's probably he wasn't very big, probably about $150.
Yeah, but that guy didn't know the risky business he had just stepped into.
And then his partner, which might have been Cremator at the time.
Right, it was about 275,
yeah.
easy, 300 pounds.
I hadn't counted on all these people at once. I thought
you had a heart attack.
I thought they're gonna walk. I thought they're gonna walk in a straight line. They're gonna walk. Mark Mest goes up. He does a pose. He walks down as the next guy's coming out. But no.
You're supposed to be a gorilla.
What goes up, Mest come down, you know?
They spread across the stage, the 3 of them, and posed while Ronnie Reigns jumps up and down. Thank God he was the smallest of them. And
I remember I was sitting next to you, Fred, for this.
And we were like, this is not going to, this whole fucking thing is going to collapse.
And Fred was a second away from yelling over to him. Thank God I didn't know what was going on, or I would have been sitting there calling up our insurance. Just being like, I just want to triple check. We're set for this.
And I will pat myself on the back. The stage held.
Yeah, it absolutely did.
That can be a t-shirt, Josh. Yeah. That can be the t-shirt, Josh. Mess in the back. The stage held.
And the stage held.
The stage held.
Yeah.
All right, so Josh, you wanted to get into the.
Well, no, we also, the other thing that we had on this show was we had John Brody and Sassy Mike Malassi, 2 homegrown people who had really just been trained by me for the most part, doing a hardcore match where John was doing weapons and Mike was using food because that was kind of his gimmick, and it was excellent. It was an incredibly entertaining match, and it was the first time that we really looked at something and said, wow, like sometimes, you know, you can have this odd couple connection here. We didn't really know we're like, this will be funny. Mike will bring out a pie and it will be, you know, what's that?
No, then the tomatoes came in.
No, I was setting you up for pie. I've been trying to do this shit with Meanie for such a long time. Calvin Tan, I'm disappointed in you.
It's too late at
I
night.
thought Mangol was going to do it, but
no. No, but
I mean,
anyway.
I mean, you need that comic relief, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely,
that's why that match went over.
So Mike, not only did he have the pie.
Pie.
What's that?
said pie.
Pie? Okay. This is listeners at home. This is the worst it's ever been. Nobody gets it, but I'm trying to get a damn pie t-shirt. Come on.
Just make it,
Bring it back
Josh. You
next
already
week.
did.
Next
Well,
time.
now we've just talked about it the whole time. We can just do it. Selector, just make a pie, please. Anyway,
We will explain that.
It's gonna be Josh going, take my pie, please.
yes,
easy on
please.
that.
So, Sassy
than
Mike
a cat's
Malassi
asshole.
came to the ring with a hoagie. For those who don't know, a hoagie, I think we talked about it last time. A hoagie is some people call it a sub. It's a long breaded a sandwich, if you will. So his weapon was going to be
a sandwich.
A sandwich, yeah. His weapon was going to be the sandwich, okay? And it was going to be one of those things where, like, when he goes and he holds up the kendo stick and the sandwich, and he goes back and forth and up and down, and the crowd.
By far the best old school playing to the crowd that anyone had ever done in TWF
was Mike Green at that. Yeah, Sassy Mike Malassi at that point.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted him to use the hoagie to hit Brody over the head. Well, inside, so he hits him over the head and reveals inside the hoagie, it's a lead pipe.
Oh,
right?
wait, he hit him
Old
over the
school
head.
wrestling.
Hold on.
You missed the step. He hit him over the head.
No. I know. We're getting there. We're getting there.
I'm going to start gesticulating here.
All right, turn your camera off.
We're walking through the aisle of loaves, looking at all the quote unquote pipage. Okay. I show Josh, looks like a toilet paper roll made out of, not metal, hollow. Okay. Let's use this. No. Josh picks a wrought iron.
It was a piece of rebar, pretty much.
Yeah,
it was a piece of rebar. Like a
like
very
people aren't going to
short.
believe that. I'm like, Josh, people aren't going to be looking at it. So anyway.
No, but here,
I'm conscious piloting that. My hands are washed on that.
But here's the thing. I specifically said to Mike and Brody, because I'm sitting there working other stuff, helping you and Lou, I think, going over your match. And I see out of the corner of my eye, Mike with the hoagie motioning like he's going to hit just straight down, crack Brody over the head with it. And I go over, I go, no. You're going to do Triple H and the sledgehammer. You're going to have it, you're going to go, and you're either going to use the back of your hand to hit him, or you're going to kind of side swipe where he's basically getting hit in the head with like a soft hoagie and he's bumping off of it. Not a big deal. Well, I'm assuming at one point afterwards, Brody goes, we're going to do it this way. And Mike was also our color commentator, Sassy Mike Malassi. And that man sat there the entire evening picking at the hoagie, picking at it.
Picking the hoagie.
To the point where when he went to hit John, I'm outside the ring in this match. I'm managing John. I'm outside the ring. Now I'm already bleeding because they had a ladder in there at one point. And Mike punched me. I took a bump, rolled to the outside and landed on the ladder and it sliced my finger open. So I'm out there bleeding. I'm nursing. All of a sudden I get sideswiped by a piece of hoagie. And it wasn't until I watched the video back afterwards that I saw when he went back to hit him with the hoagie, when Mike lifted up over his head, that top piece of the hoagie went flying. And Mike clocked him over the head with a shoot lead pipe. And Brody...
he was eating his gimmick.
Yep.
And then another man got busted open.
Eating his gimmick, and then he smacked his lead pipe on Brody's head.
As time went on, the bread dried out. Too.
Right. Yeah. Well, we probably got it from Subway. So they're known for their hard bread. Could have just used that as the weapon, said this is from Subway, and people would have gone like, oh shit, can't hit him with that. But so he cracks him over the head. I go over to Brody. I'm like, hey, are you all right? I put my hand, Brody, this is when Brody and I became blood brothers. I put my hand on Brody's head, and it is just like, looks like I could have, if you had a volleyball, I could have made my own Wilson right there. Like, it was just drenched in blood.
Yeah.
He ended up having to get a bunch of staples in his head. Yep. went to the emergency room, was actually seen by Fred and my mom's cousin, who was the doctor in the emergency room, rest his soul. And he so we're kind of like, we're getting like phone calls, like, and obviously our parents were very upset.
Not a good look. Yeah.
Not a good look. John's parents were very upset. And I called Brody. I remember it was the next day. I called him and I'm just like, dude, I'm like, I understand, you're not gonna be able to do this anymore. He's like, dude, whatever. He's like, I'm good. I don't care. And that man was back the next show. And it was, it was,
we learned a couple things about gimmicking the stunts and stuff like that. I think that and I know there's a Mark Mest story in there too about that match, but there,
no, that was the next match. It might end up being next episode.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
next episode. Yeah.
No, but I think that was an eye-opening experience because we had dodged a few bullets in previous shows when we were younger and everything, and I think that we never had anybody.
Dominator.
Yeah.
Porter to Madman.
Death penalty.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah.
There were a handful of things, and I think we had never had anybody seriously injured, and we always were able to tell parents and everything, anybody around, like I mean, accidents can happen, but we take great precautions and we know what we're doing and everything like that. And this was a stunt.
And I still stand by the fact that we did, because John told Mike to. Mike listened to John.
Josh told him, and then plans
pairing
changed.
of them. Yeah. The pairing of them was not great in that sense.
But it was great in every other sense. And they ended up having a return match 2 months later, which damn near killed Mark Mest. And we'll talk about that maybe next week.
Yes.
Or next show.
Next
We're not doing this
whenever.
weekly. But I do want to say,
go ahead.
I want to put a bow on some of these things. So next time we do the show, we'll talk about that trip to West Virginia. Because now I felt like we were really starting to rock and roll here.
And,
we were really
Enter the Sandman with that one.
Enter Sandman.
Right, we were gearing up. We were gearing up to do multiple shows. We're coming from a company that had done 2 shows,
June and October, and then we had done February and April.
We did 2 shows the first go around and then died out, and now we're running. We booked Colonial Elementary School for multiple shows. We're ready, and then we'll talk about this next time. But we ended up doing basically a house show in West Virginia, an out-of-state show. That was huge for us, and I think that on top of that, because I remember this may not have been until when the rematch of John and Mike that I'm thinking of, but I know we were starting to get people reviewing our shows online. There were like
wait till West Virginia.
Wait till West Virginia. Yeah, that was a review.
We were getting attention, good, bad, whatever. We were getting attention, which is hard to stand out in a pack, especially when you were referring to CZW, Ring of Honor, all that stuff that was happening.
And one of the best things we had was we had Hat Guy and his crew from ECW. Sure. They were there, front row.
They thought what we were doing was fun, and that was what we really
And that was it. And we were trying to just have fun. And I'm sure half the things that we thought were serious, they still thought were fun. But we were trying to have fun. But one of the big standouts here was that that trip to West Virginia. There were a lot of I think after this show and after John got hurt and after we had to like go back and look at everything and look at ourselves and say, okay, what are we doing? What are we trying to do here? That was when we had Big Papa return at the end. And I know storylines don't matter in what we're talking about here. Big Papa made his big return. He hadn't been there since October 99. He came out there, hit me with a power bomb. It was great. It was a lot of fun. I talked about this on the special on Fight TV with Calvin and Noah about how I was always trying to chase that feeling, that high from beyond the grave. And I think we all were to an extent. And having Noah back there, having Big Papa back there was enough to like be like, you know what we need? We need more of what we used to have. And that's why I want to say, I guess it was July or August, August.
Inferno, yeah.
Was the return of Heatwave. of Calvin Tan.
That's right.
An episode where Calvin Tan will actually get to talk.
At Inferno.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think with Big Papa, and this is really a story for a different time, though he did return early on. I think that it speaks to a lot of things. It speaks to the bubble that we were in, that we thought that our storylines mattered so much when we'd only done a handful of shows and the audience doesn't really know anything yet. Yeah. They barely know Rocky Styles to be able to care that Rocky's arch rival from the past has suddenly returned, and like that. Yeah. That I think we were in over our heads with a lot of that, but I think it was that chasing that feeling, and I remember thinking at the time that I don't remember where I had read this or something. It was like maybe like a history of WrestleMania book or something. And they were talking about WrestleMania 9 when Hogan came back. And someone was saying that Vince McMahon had said he was so happy going around backstage and said, "Happy days are here again." And I think that's the feeling that we had, that Noah represented a big piece of what we saw. And again, not what the audience saw, but what we saw as the TWF. And he was missing. Despite the success we were having and the fun we were having, we were missing. Big Papa was a huge component of what we had been. Right. So to us, it was important to get him back in there.
Yeah.
Whether that made any sense or not.
No, and it really didn't. And it was, but as they say on some other shows, it was snake bit from the start, because
for sure,
Noah this wasn't high school where a guy who's 6'3" or 6'4" is this massive giant of a man. He was now the same size as a handful of a guy like a Kevin Matthews or something, who was not being billed as a giant by any means. So
Noah worked a giant style with very slow and plodding and like the big gorilla slap.
Yeah.
I was like, and
it just wasn't, but it was exciting at this point, because this is when we started talking about bringing Calvin back to manage Mangol. Kind of, because again, we were trying to find Mangol's character.
Well, that's it.
And Mangol didn't want to go back to that IOV thing. Had different ideas, which I think could have been really good. But
we wanted we were really
again to chase that old. We want the IOV back.
IOV thing. Yep.
Dorian might be busy in frickin' Afghanistan at this point. And I remember we got a call from him at one of the shows. Actually, he called, I guess, one of you guys.
It may have been that show.
Maybe
it was
that
a show
show.
at Colonial.
And he checked
in and said he was getting ready to.
He's getting ready to leave. For Afghanistan, and
I swear to God, it was Iraq. Maybe I'm
Iraq. I don't know.
It was Iraq.
It was Iraq.
It was Iraq, because at that point, I think they were done with Afghanistan and they were sending the troops to get Saddam Hussein in Iraq.
Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, so now you're also having this thing where there's this like seriousness of, here we all are trying to chase our high school days of the Teenage Wrestling Foundation. And one of these guys is missing, and the man's missing because he's freaking getting sent off to Iraq to fight a war so that we can be, free at home putting on stupid wrestling shows. Yeah. It was a very weird.
He was a chemical specialist.
Yeah.
So at that time, if you recall, they were looking for chemical weapons in Iraq, and that's why he was deployed there.
Yeah, and it was. I remember we did do the. We made sure that we had like the national anthem. We always had stuff like that, but I think it was like extra important to us because we're just like, hey, one of those troops is one of our own. But it was a weird time. And having Noah come back, like I said, it was kind of snake bit from the start, and we'll get into that more next time.
I think that's a good place to wrap up. Is that we
thought happy days are here again.
We came out of the Colonial show about like firing on all cylinders, beginning to really build something that could be something. And at the same time, in many ways, we were our own worst enemy, and we're actively undermining what we're about to build.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put a bow on it. The one thing I do want to say before we go, Mangol.
Yes.
I'm gonna eat my shit and learn to like it, as they say. Matt Mangol said in the last episode that he was given an entire script for his promo at Back from Beyond. Yeah. And I denied that because I had no recollection of it. Well, this man has been, and I've seen the up close script here. The man is able to actually
Let's hear.
Produce this script.
That's right.
The Mangol Attic.
Would you read just a bit of it for us, Mangol?
As John Brody. You know, in his style, very much Rob Van Dam. You know, hi. Yeah, probably. You know, I've been sitting back real quiet for a long time now. And you know what? I don't want to be quiet anymore. Josh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so he called me Josh in the middle of the ring there, which was not my name on the show. So.
On June 18th, 1999, I made the decision, spelled wrong. Good job, Josh, for that. To join you in the HCC, the Hardcore Clan. And I can't say that I completely regret that decision. After all, you did give me the Hardcore title. It's just like that. I kind of feel like it's time to win a title on my own, you know?
To which, if I remember correctly, I interrupted and said something along the lines, oh, I see what you say. You want to be inserted into the Pennsylvania title tournament. That's fine. I get that, blah, 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 whatever. So we don't need to do the whole promo, but then Matt Mangol comes out to interrupt.
If you ladies would please stop your bitching. And if you would give me time to introduce myself. My name is Mangol. Mangle. And up until you,
pronouns, pal.
Yeah, Rocky Styles.
There we go.
Striped
really,
me.
you get what I mean.
You put striped me. Stripped me.
Are you calling me out on typos from 2002?
I'm just reading what's here. You stripped me and Dorian,
yes,
of the TWF Tag Team titles. We were the first and only TWF Tag Team champions.
Thus showing why making sure everyone knows the rich history and lineage of the TWF championships.
Exactly. And you see, until you fire Damien, I was a member of the IOV and the Warlords tag team. So I was sitting backstage and found myself wondering, where do I go from here? Then I overheard the two of you. And I got to thinking, if he's going to take my belt, I am sure as hell going to take his. But here's a little business proposition for you. The two of you ladies and I get in the ring tonight. The superstar, you can prove to everyone that you deserve that title. And I get in there and, the two of you, you have.
This is it. That's actually, but here's the thing.
How it went.
That's pretty much how it actually went, where you go, no. Almost forgot. Almost forgot.
Rocky Styles, you want to take... Oh, that wasn't it. I almost forgot. Can't forget this.
This is the same thing I got tongue-tied on before because it's written awful.
But you weren't reading it.
Written by Stevie Wonder over here. The two of you and I get in the ring tonight, and Superstar, you can prove to everyone that you deserve that title, or I get in there and beat the living hell out of you right now.
And
you whine, you call your mom on your cell phone.
The crowd went.
Yes,
silent.
I said, you better pray to God that. Wait, what? The way this is written here, it sounds like you better pray to God that God has your back. It says you better pray to God that He has your back.
Pronouns, but you're pointing to Brody.
No, I know, but the way you wrote it,
that He has your back because
it sounds like the other way. Anyway.
God's looking out for you.
Yeah, well, it still applies. You better pray to God that He has your back. You only saw one set of footprints, you know.
Yeah.
It's because Brody was carrying me.
That's a T-shirt. Oh man. And I said, you will learn firsthand that I am not only Mangol by name, but Mangol by reputation.
There it was. Austin 316. It was not, but we.
What was Brody? Brody was not. He was. Yeah, but he was Brody 9
something 3 times as much pain.
Like and 3 times as much pain. Whatever 316.
Yeah,
it wasn't great.
Yeah,
948 or something.
948. Yeah, Brody 948, and 3 times as much pain.
And on that note,
On that note, Calvin, anything else you want to... Calvin, the last thing I just want to say, because Calvin didn't talk a lot in this episode, much like our friendship for the last 20 plus years, but...
I'm a silent observer of things.
And that's why I want to ask you before we... the observer. No, except Calvin tells the truth. Calvin just sits... He just makes things up while he...
Well, plans change, Josh.
Yeah. Calvin, are you wearing stonewashed jeans?
Jeb Howard from Three Stooges. Sorry.
What I do want to ask, because you are an observer.
Actual.
I want to know this time period from Last Man Standing in April of 2002 until where we're kind of stopping here after the June show before we went off to West Virginia in 2002. These couple months here were pretty busy for us. What was your feeling on it? Did you feel and have a Noah?
You want me to shoot?
I want you to shoot.
I mean, we were all involved in it. But I remember at the time, the amount of time spent on these videos to tell the story. I remember thinking to myself, this is a complete waste of time. Complete waste of time. Because the audience is... they don't really, like, they're showing up to watch a wrestling show. They don't care, they don't care about the storylines. They're not watching us on TV following storylines. Like,
do you ever think you should have
said
just want to go?
They just want to go to a wrestling show and be entertained, So to me, it's like this 15-minute history of the TWF. I'm like, you're spending so much time. I remember we would be at your house and you'd be editing this thing, and I'm like, we have to plan other things for this show. But we're spending all this time editing and putting together this history video, and nobody's gonna really care, except for us, right?
As it turns out,
we're kind of doing it for ourselves.
But as it turns out, you were wrong because we didn't even care. So nobody cared.
But I mean, I think once we started bringing in other wrestlers, it was like, okay, it's starting to get more legit now, right?
And that was the thing. I think that 15-minute video was almost like the swan song in a lot of ways of that really self-inflated view. And I think we now at this show, enter Danny Demento, Drew Blood, Devin Moore. Devin may not have been there yet, but Hayden and Cage. And we're starting to now have actual talent there that people were really drawn to. What's that?
Lighting rig?
We didn't have a lighting rig.
No.
That was,
that was
2003.
We'll get into that next time.
Oh boy,
we had these indie wrestlers, but then we also had footage from them in which we cut together pretty nice videos for them.
Yes.
With their audio and stuff like that, because they would talk into the camera and we would have that footage and we would reuse it.
And that was Danny Demento used that for years in his career. He, at one point, he looked in the camera, he goes, "I am the man, I'm hot, chicks dig me."
Dig me.
And chicks dig me. And we grabbed that and put that in the start of his entrance video, and it went right into his music. And that was when I remember when the TWF folded, he's just like, "Can I get that music? I want to keep using that with the I am the man, I'm hot, chicks dig me," and then bump, 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 bump.
I mean, it wasn't without its problems, and we'll get to that, but I think we latched onto a group of primarily New York-based talent that were pretty good and could work together very well, and they weren't well known in the Philly market. So that's part of how we started growing, was that a lot of these
more
guys
fans and stuff. Yeah.
A lot of these guys who were working in New York and known for all different promotions up there, to the Philly fans, they were TWF guys, and that was helping us.
Yeah. And you know what? We consider all of you who are listening and watching TWF guys and gals. We appreciate you tuning in every time we do one of these. It's just a lot of fun for us to sit around
mind-boggling
and reminisce. We can't believe we've looked at the numbers, and it's almost offensive to you that you would support us in such a way.
Gotta be something better you could do with your time.
We're concerned that you don't have anything, and so we're going to recommend right now, we're going to run down a list of hobbies that might be better. Your time might be better spent. No, but seriously, we appreciate it. Matt Mangol, thank you for joining us. Thank you for getting a solid, good microphone. You're going to have to send that over to Gertner. Calvin Tan, your bukkake looks incredible as always. Fred, not since WrestleMania last year at the Performance Center have I seen such incredible lighting in a garage. You're looking good. Everything's looking great there. And myself here sporting the new Talking with Friends logo tee.
And listen, I don't remember the website offhand, but if you want to do some Googling and if you want to throw a little money Mark Mest way, because he was the unwilling subject of our talk tonight and probably next time.
Yes.
The shirt that Matt Mangol is wearing, Mark Mest does sell that.
Yes.
And we highly recommend you take a look. He's got a few other shirts too, I think.
Yeah. But Mark Mest is man, I hope one day we can get him on.
He's
here.
on Twitter. Triple M 007.
Instagram, yeah.
Well, we'll have to tag him. Maybe we'll have to tag him in this that we talked about him. Or maybe not. I'll have to go back and see what did we say. But we love Mark. He was a great guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah. And and Fred is rocking the old school, in case you're wondering, his shirt says Shernoff's. That is the old Shernoff Salads shirt from back in the day. That was our dad's business. And if it looks familiar and you aren't in the tri-state area, that's because I have a cool shirt that looks just like that says So Says Shernoff, available at ProWrestlingTees.com/So Says Shernoff. This has been Talking with Friends, TWF, for Matt, for Calvin, for Fred. I'm Josh Shernoff, and we will see you next time